Welcome to the deep dive. Ever felt like Jira? Well, it's powerful, but maybe a bit opaque sometimes, like you're not quite getting the most out of it.
Oh, absolutely. It's got layers.
Yeah, exactly. So today, we're going to try and peel back some of those layers. We're focusing on permissions and settings, the kind of stuff that, honestly, mastering it can feel like a superpower for your team's efficiency.
That's a good way to put it. Think of this as a bit of a shortcut. We've got some really practical questions, the kind that pop up when you're actually using Jira day to day.
Right. So maybe you're prepping for that ACP-620 Jira certification, or maybe you're just trying to figure out why someone on your team can't do something specific, or maybe you're just curious. Whatever the reason, we think you'll get some definite aha moments today.
And like you said, the stuff we're talking about, it comes from practice questions for that ACP-620 exam. So it's grounded in, real-world application and what Atlassian thinks is important.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty simple. Pull out the key knowledge nuggets from these questions and explanations. We want to give you a really clear, concise understanding of some essential Jira features and, yeah, those crucial permissions.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Okay, let's jump right in with something super common. Moving issues, from one project to another.
Yes, the cross-project move, always fun. So the question is, what permissions do you actually need?
Our sources say you need two, which might surprise some people. You need move issues, obviously.
Makes sense.
But you also need transition issues. Now, why that second one, move, seems like it should cover it.
Yeah, that's a really common point of confusion. It boils down to how Jira handles workflows. Moving an issue isn't just changing its location. It often involves changing its status, fitting it into the new project's workflow.
Good.
So the transition issues permission is what allows the system to actually perform those necessary status updates or trigger the right workflow steps when it lands in the new project. They're kind of linked.
Got it. So it's about the whole life cycle, not just the physical move. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, sticking with permissions and control, let's talk team-managed projects.
The newer, more self-contained ones.
Right. What happens when you add a new user to one of those? What can they do by default?
This is interesting because it's designed to be, let's say, simpler up front. The default role for a brand new user added to a team-managed project is just viewer.
Viewer, so literally just looking.
Pretty much. Read only. They can see the issues, the board, but they can't edit, they can't transition things, they can't add comments initially.
Huh. Okay, so that's quite locked down by default compared to maybe what some people expect.
Exactly. It means someone, usually the project admin for that specific project, needs to actively grant them a higher role, like member or administrator, if they need to contribute or change things. It impacts access control right from the start.
Good to know. Prevents accidental edits, I suppose. All right, let's zoom out from individual issues. Epics, big containers for work. What are their key characteristics?
Well, a big one our sources highlight is that epics can span multiple projects. That's huge.
Right, so you can group related work even if it's being done by different teams in different project spaces.
Precisely. It lets you track a larger initiative that cuts across different areas. Really useful for that higher level view.
Okay. What else about epics? Particularly, say, on Kanban boards.
Yeah, good point. If you want to properly manage and, visualize your epics in a Kanban backlog, treat them like backlog items themselves, you need to make sure the Kanban backlog feature is actually enabled for that board.
So it's an extra step for Kanban users.
It is. Otherwise, they don't quite integrate into that Kanban column flow in the same way.
Interesting. And the source also mentioned a couple of things. Epics aren't, right? Like they don't automatically become subtasks or have totally different screens.
Correct. They're not fundamentally different types of things in Jira's structure, like subtasks are to standard issues. They use the same basic issue fields and screens, just with specific epic fields added. Think of them as large standard issues used for grouping.
Okay, clears that up. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of Scrum. Ranking the backlog, dragging those stories up and down. What permission controls that ability?
For ranking issues on a Scrum board's backlog, the permission you need is simply edit issues.
Just edit issues, not a specific rank issues permission.
Nope. Because changing the rank, changing the order, Jira sees that as a modification, an edit, to the issue's data, specifically its priority relative to others.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a change to the issue.
Exactly. And that has direct practical implications, right? If your team members can't edit issues in that project.
They can't participate in backlog grooming or sprint planning properly. They can't move anything.
Precisely. So that permission is key for collaborative refinement.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift from issues back to the project container itself. Once a project is created, what details can you actually change later on?
You've got some flexibility on the main project details page. You can definitely change the project name.
Sure, names change.
You can change the project lead, obviously, if someone else takes over. And you
Hmm.
can change the project avatar, give it a nice icon.
So the human-facing stuff, mostly. What about the really core structural things?
Yeah, that's where it gets tighter. The project key, that short code like PROJ that's part of every issue ID,
Hmm.
and the project type like company managed or team managed, those are generally locked in once the project is created.
And why is that? Why are they so fixed?
Because they're fundamental to how Jira organizes everything, especially the project key. It's like the primary identifier in the database for everything linked to that project.
Yeah.
Changing it would cause chaos with links, filters, dashboards, integrations, just a huge mess.
Okay, yeah. Don't touch the project key. Got it.
Pretty much. Project type is similar. Changing it would fundamentally alter how permissions, workflows, and features work for that project.
Right. Okay, let's tackle a real head scratcher lots of people hit. Someone has the move issues permission, but they try to move an issue to a different project, and it fails.
Mhm.
Maybe they can move to project A, but not project B. What's likely going on?
Ah, the classic move failure mystery. This happens all the time. They have move issues in the source project, but they still can't land it in the target project. The most likely reason, they're missing the create issue permission
Creatives.
in the target project, the destination.
Wait, why create? They're moving something that already exists? That seems weird.
It does seem counterintuitive, but here's the logic. When Jira moves an issue, it's not just like dragging a file, it's essentially creating a new instance of that issue in the target project's context, copying over all the data.
Ah, okay. It's like a copy-paste-delete operation behind the scenes.
Kind of, yeah. It needs permission to make that new issue record in the destination project space. So you
Mhm.
need move from the source and create in the target.
That clarifies so much. That trips people up constantly. Okay, next scenario.
Mm.
End of a sprint. You've got issues that aren't done. What happens to them when you click complete sprint?
Good question. They don't just vanish into the ether, thankfully.
Yeah.
Jira gives you options. When you complete the sprint, it shows you the list of unfinished issues. You can choose to move them,
Where?
either directly into the next sprint you plan to start, if you know you want to keep working on them immediately,
Okay.
or you can send them back to the product backlog.
To be reprioritized later.
Exactly. Reconsidered for a future sprint. They aren't automatically deleted or archived or anything like that. You decide their fate.
That's good. Control over the carryover. It ensures nothing gets lost, and you consciously decide what to do with incomplete work.
Precisely. It supports continuous flow and proper backlog management.
Okay, let's talk about project creation itself. Is there a type of project that like anyone with a Jira license can just create and manage themselves by default without needing a Jira admin?
Yes, there is. That level of accessibility and self-service is the defining characteristic of the team-managed project.
Team managed again. So that's their big advantage, empowerment.
That's a huge part of their design philosophy, yeah. Formerly called NextGen. The idea is to let teams quickly spin up their own project space and manage its configuration board columns, simple workflows, issue types, without waiting for central administration. More agile, more autonomous.
Sounds great for teams wanting to move fast.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting to monitoring progress, tracking time. What reports in Jira help with that? Like seeing if estimates match reality.
For time tracking, our sources point to two main reports. First, the time tracking report.
Okay, what's that show?
That one directly compares the original time estimate you put on issues versus the actual time spent that people have logged against them using Jira's work log feature.
Super useful for seeing if your team's estimates are, well, any good.
Exactly. Or identifying tasks that consistently blow out their estimates. It helps refine planning.
And the second time-related report.
That's the resolution time report. This one looks at the total time an issue spends being actively worked on until it's resolved. Basically, how long things take from start to finish, on average.
So less about estimate accuracy, more about overall cycle time.
Right. How quickly are you getting different types of work through the system? Both reports give you really valuable data for analysis and improvement.
Definitely. Okay, last scenario. This one causes headaches too. You've set up a board. It's supposed to show issues from multiple projects.
Yeah.
But some issues just aren't there. They seem to be missing. What's the number one suspect?
When issues go missing from a multi-project board, the absolute first place to look 9 times out of 10, is the board filter query.
The JQL query that powers the board.
Exactly. That filter is the precise definition of which issues the board is allowed to display. If it's not showing issues you expect, it's highly likely the filter query itself is too restrictive.
So maybe it doesn't include one of the projects properly, or is filtering out certain issue types or statuses unintentionally.
Precisely. Maybe the JQL says Project Project A or Project JB, but you forgot, or Project JC. Or maybe it includes status. Done, but some issues are in a custom closed status it doesn't account for.
Gotcha. So step one is always check that board filter query. Make sure it accurately captures, based on what we discussed today, these permissions, project settings, default behaviors. Is there maybe one small tweak you could make?
Like in your permissions scheme or how you structure a board filter.
Yeah, something that might improve your team's workflow just a little bit, or maybe make things a bit more transparent, or even just thinking about how knowing the defaults for team-managed projects might change how you'd set up a new project from scratch.
Lots to chew on there.
Definitely. Well, thanks so much for digging into this with us today.
My pleasure. It was a great discussion.